The M60 Patton is a main battle tank introduced in December 1960. With the United States Army's deactivation of the last heavy tank battalion in 1963, the M60 became the Army's primary tank during the Cold War. Although developed from the M48 Patton, the M60 series was never officially classified as a Patton tank, but as a product improved descendant of the Patton series. In March 1959, the tank was officially standardized as the 105mm gun full-tracked combat tank M60. The M60 underwent many updates over its service life. The interior layout, based on the design of the M48, provided ample room for updates and improvements, extending the vehicle's service life for over 4 decades. It was widely used by the U.S. and its Cold War allies, especially those in NATO, and remains in service throughout the world today. Despite having been superseded by the M1 Abrams in the U.S. military, Egypt is currently the largest operator with 1,716 upgraded M60A3s. Turkey is second with 866 upgraded units in service, and Israel is third with over 700 units of Israeli variants. Development impetus. During the Hungarian Revolution of 1956, a Soviet T-54A medium tank was driven onto the grounds of the British Embassy in Budapest by the Hungarians. After a brief examination of this tank's armor and 100mm gun, British officials decided that the 20-pounder was apparently incapable of defeating it. There were also rumors of an even larger 115mm gun in the works. Hence there was a need to adopt a 105mm gun, which emerged as the famed Royal Ordnance L7. This information made its way to the United States, where the Army had been experimenting with a series of upgrades to their M48 Patton tanks. These experiments were concerned with improving the armor and the introduction of a variety of autoloader systems, such as that used in the 105mm gun tank T-54, and upgraded rangefinders. The T-95 program, launched after the III conference in June 1954, was the intended replacement to the M48. It featured a host of innovative and experimental components such as its 90mm smoothbore T-208 cannon, rigidly affixed to its turret, and its new powertrain and suspension. The burden of developing them, however, slowed the overall program to a crawl. General Taylor approved of a new tank development program in August 1957. This incorporated many ARCOVE recommendations and foresaw the eventual replacement of the light, medium, and heavy tanks with two types: the airborne reconnaissance assault vehicle and the main battle tank. The MBT was to combine the firepower and protection sufficient for the assault role with the mobility to perform as a medium tank. A tank of the T-95 series, armed with a smoothbore cannon and powered by a compression ignition engine, was envisaged by the Army staff as the bearer of the role of future MBT. The course of this tank program was the source of widespread debate. The Bureau of Budget believed that the Army was not progressing with sufficient speed in its tank modernization program and recommended the immediate replacement of the M48A2, correctly predicting that the BOD would not approve the procurement of the M48A2 after the fiscal year of 1959. The Deputy Chief of Staff Logistics proposed a tank based on the M48A2 featuring improved firepower and the AVDS-1790 engine. The alternative was to introduce a tank from the T-95 series, but it remained highly experimental with its compression ignition engine not as developed as the AVDS-1790. an influential group of senior officers, by May 1958, concluded that the T-95 had only marginal advantages over the M48A2. They proposed that the most important improvements, better firepower and fuel economy, could be achieved by mounting a compression ignition engine and a more powerful gun on the M48A2. Choice of components: the main gun was chosen after a comparative firing test on the Aberdeen Proving Grounds. Participating in the test were 6 guns: the 90mm M41, the 90mm T2089, the 105mm X158, the 105mm T254, the 120mm T123E6, and the 120mm M58. The 120mm T123E6 was preferred by the Ordnance Department because its ammunition, the same as that for the M58 gun, was already at an advanced state of development. The T123E6, however, had a slow rate of fire as, unlike the M58 on the M103, there would only be one loader servicing it. This led to the weapon having a max rate of fire of 4 revolutions per minute versus the T254's 7 revolutions per minute. The factors evaluated were accuracy, lethality of a hit, rate of fire, and penetration performance. Based on these tests, the 105mm T254E2 was selected and standardized as the M68. Until American-made tubes could be obtained with comparable accuracy, British tubes were to be used. Composite armor made with fused silica glass was intended on the turret and the hull. This composite armor provides protection against heat, HEP, anti-rounds. However, repaired castings suffered a loss of kinetic energy protection. This led to the front of the hull taking the shape of a flat wedge, instead of the M48's elliptical front, as it simplified the installation of this armor. Limitations in manufacturing capacity and the added cost, however, lead to this special armor being dropped and all M60 series tanks were protected with conventional steel armor. Initial versions in 1957, plans were laid in the U.S. for a universal or all-purpose tank. Fulfilling this requirement with an interim tank resulted in the M60 series, which largely resembles the M48 it was based on, but has significant differences. The M60 mounted a 105mm M68 main gun with the bore evacuator mounted towards the middle of the tube, compared with the M48's 90mm M41, which mounted the bore evacuator towards the end of the tube right after its D-shaped muzzle brake. It also had a hull with a straight front slope, whereas the M48's hull was rounded, had 3 support rollers per side to the M48's 5, and had road wheels constructed from aluminum rather than steel, although the M48 wheels were often used as spare parts. The improved design incorporated a Continental V12 750 horsepower air-cooled AVDS 1790-2 diesel engine, extending operational range to over 300 miles while reducing both refueling and servicing. Power was transmitted through a CD 850-6 cross-drive transmission, a combined transmission, differential, steering, and braking unit. The hull of the M60, like its predecessor the M48, could be cast as a single piece by welding smaller castings. The turret was similar to the M48A2 and was made as a single-piece casting, although it was modified to accept the new larger diameter cupola and the M116 mount for the 105mm gun. The hull was divided into 3 compartments, with the driver in front, fighting compartment in the middle and engine at the rear. The driver looked through 3 M27-day periscopes, one of which could be replaced by an M24 infrared night vision periscope. The M60 was the last U.S. main battle tank to utilize homogeneous steel armor for protection. It was also the last to feature an escape hatch under the hull. Originally designated the M60, the new vehicle was put into production in 1959, standardized as the 105mm gun full-tracked combat tank M60 on 16 March 1959, and entered service in 1960. There was a proposal in April 1959 to change the nomenclature to 105mm gun main battle tank M60. This was, however, rejected due to a conflict with the Federal Cataloging Agency policy. Over 15,000 M60s were built. M60A1 series, approved in March 21, 1960, was the initial program that led to the M60A1. This new variant was first produced in October 1962 and stayed in production until 1980. Featured a larger, better-shaped turret and improvements to the armor protection and shock absorbers, while the M60 continued to use the turret based on the M48A2 ST95E7 style. Turrets were not abandoned. Work continued on an elongated turret based on its design. The turret, even without the silicious cord armor, provided improved ballistic protection. Additional space for the turret crew was also made available by mounting the cannon 5 inches forward. In addition to the added protection offered by this turret on production M60A1s, the upper glacis armor was increased from 3.67 to 4.29 at 65 degrees, while the sides over the crew compartment went from 1.9 to 2.9 at their apex. This brought the frontal armor up to the same 10 inches line of sight armor standard of the M103 heavy tank. Shock absorbers were installed in the first two and last road wheel arms. The uncomfortable wire mesh seats were replaced by padded seats. The brake and accelerator pedal were rearranged for more efficient and comfortable operation, while the steering wheel was replaced by a T-bar steering control. The engine and powertrain were upgraded by the addition of the Continental AVDS 17902A and the CD 856A. The new engine lowered fuel consumption and smoke emissions. Combination DIR periscopes were introduced, the M32 for the gunner and the M36 for the commander, although the commander's periscope could be substituted with the M34 for binocular vision. Without IR, as development of a new main battle tank stalled with problems and cost escalating quickly, the M60A1 was forced to serve longer than originally intended, with production lasting over 20 years. In that time span, numerous product improvement programs were put forward. The first of which was TLAC, the top-loading air cleaner. This reduced dirt and dust ingestion, which increased engine life. Its stop-loading configuration also made it easier to service. Next came the AOS, meaning add-on stabilization, was introduced in late 1972. As its name implies, this was an add-on stabilizer kit made to fit with minimum modifications to the existing hydraulic gun control system. It was made up of several components: the rate sensor package, a control selector box, the electronics package, a shut-off valve, the traverse servo valve assembly, the elevation servo valve assembly, the handle shaping assembly, and hydraulic filter, and an anti-backlash cylinder. At short-medium ranges, hit probabilities better than 50% from a moving M60A1 were obtained in Aberdeen test results, while without a stabilizer it was essentially zero. M60A1 was the designation received by M60s equipped with the TLAC AOS and the new T142 steel trap, which had replaceable rubber pads and improved service life. In 1975, the M60A1, meaning reliability improved selected equipment, was introduced. Its AVDS17902C diesel engine featured several changes in order to improve service life and reliability. New top-loading air cleaners, stronger cylinders, improved starter, fuel injection lines and nozzles, and better turbo superchargers. A new 650 ampere oil-cooled alternator, a solid-state regulator and new wiring harness with more accessible disconnect were also incorporated into its electrical system. The M60A1, which debuted in 1977, featured passive night vision sights for gunner and commander, a new night vision device for the driver and a deep water footing kit. M60A2 Starship. The M60A2 was intended as a stopgap solution until the projected replacement by the MBT-70. The M60A2, nicknamed the Starship due to its space-age technology, featured an entirely new low-profile turret with a commander's machine gun cupola on top, giving the commander a good view and field of fire while under armor but spoiling the low profile. It featured a 152mm main gun similar to that of the M551 Sheridan light tank, which fired conventional rounds, as well as the M51 cellular anti-tank missile system. The fitting of a CBSS, which used pressurized air to clear the breach after each shot, solved the problem of unburned propellant from the main gun rounds fouling the barrel and pre-detonating subsequent rounds. The M60A2 proved a disappointment, though technical advancements would pave the way for future tanks. The MBT-70, which relied on much of this technology as it was used in the M60A2, never advanced beyond prototype stage. The cellular M60A2 system was phased out from active units by 1981, and the turrets scrapped. Most of the M60A2 tanks were rebuilt as M60A3, or the hulls converted to armored vehicle-launched bridge vehicles. M60A3 series. In 1978, work began on the M60A3 variant. It featured a number of technological enhancements, including smoke discharges, a new flash lamp, pumped ruby laser-based rangefinder that could be used by both commander and gunner, an M21 ballistic computer, and a turret stabilization system. Late production M60A3s omitted the commander's cupola. Compared to a conventional pintle mount, the remote-controlled M85 machine gun was relatively ineffective in the anti-aircraft role for which it was designed. Removing the cupola lowered the vehicle's relatively high silhouette. The cupola's hatch also opened toward the rear of the vehicle and was dangerous to close if under small arms fire, owing to an open locking mechanism that required the user to apply leverage to unlock it prior to closing. U.S. Army A3 version all retained the cupola until the tank was phased out of service. The M60A3 was phased out of U.S. service as a training aid in 2005, but it has remained a frontline MBT into the 21st century for a number of other countries. In May 2016, Raytheon revealed they had engineered service life extension program for the M60A3 as a cost-effective upgrade to procuring more modern tanks. Changes include increased engine power from 750 horsepower to 950 horsepower, new electric turret controls that are faster, more responsive, and quieter than the previous hydraulic controls, adding the larger L44 120mm gun gun along with digital fire control and targeting systems with thermal sights, and protection enhancements of side skirts, slat armor, and likely reactive armor. The M60A3 SLEP puts the vehicle's performance on par with tanks such as the T-72 and M1A1 Abrams, while keeping training and maintenance costs down, as crews are already familiar with the basic M60. The vehicle has undergone testing at the U.S. Army's Aberdeen Proving Grounds. Changing out the hydraulics with electronic systems decreases weight by 1 ton, and the digital FCS allows for firing on the move. Service history. United States. The M60-based M60 AVLB and the M728 combat engineer vehicle were the only variants of the M60 deployed to South Vietnam. The AVLB, commonly referred to as the bridge tank, was mounted on an M60 tank hull, and the M728 combat engineer vehicle was an M60 tank mounting a short-tubed 165mm main gun that fired a HEP round. Late in the M60's U.S. Army service, a number of prototype upgrades were evaluated. These were passed over in favor of simply producing more M1 Abrams. Due to the end of the Cold War, surplus U.S. Army M1s were absorbed into the remaining USMC units, allowing the Marine Corps to become an all-M1 tank force at reduced cost. Except for a small number in active service, most M60s were placed in reserve, with a few being sold to U.S. allies. The M60A3 participated in close air support trials with the F-16 in the 1980s. M60A1s are still used by the USAF for testing of ground radar equipment on new aircraft and for ground force adversarial work at Red Flag at Nellis, AFB Nevada. USMC M60A1 tanks were used in Grenada and Beirut in 1983. During Operation Desert Storm in 1991, at least one U.S. Air Force unit was equipped with M60s. The 401st TFW, deployed to Doha, Qatar, had 2 M60s for use by explosives ordnance disposal personnel. It was planned that using the MBTs would allow the EOD crews to remove unexploded ordnance from tarmac, runway and taxiway surfaces with increased safety. In early February 1991, U.S. Marines used 200 M60A1s of the 2nd Battalion drove north from Khafji, Saudi Arabia into Kuwait. In Kuwait, they encountered an Iraqi force of T-54 55th Type 69 and T-72 tanks at Kuwait City International Airport. The Marines won this battle, destroying some 100 Iraqi tanks with only one M60A1 lost. The last 18 M60A3s were maintained at the Combat Maneuver Training Center near Hohenfels, Germany. They were used in the OPFOR surrogate role by Delta Company 1st Battalion, 4th Infantry Regiment until 2005. Israel. The Israel Defense Forces purchased its first M60A1 tanks from the U.S. in 1971. M60s and M60A1s saw action with Israel during the 1973 Yom Kippur War in both the Sinai and the Golan Heights. The United States sent additional M60s to Israel just before and during hostilities. Israel had about 150 M60A1 tanks in service at the start of the war. Many Israeli M60s were destroyed by Egyptian troops with AT-3 Sagar anti-tank missiles in the first few days after Egyptian forces crossed of the Suez Canal. The tank is highly regarded in Israeli service and been praised for its firepower and maneuverability. Following the war, the IDF received many more M48s, M60s and M60A1s from the U.S. Israel further upgraded their inventory of M60s through the 1970s and into the 1980s. The Israeli modifications included new tracks and explosive reactive armor. This variant was known as the Megark. Further work in Israel has been done on the upgraded Megark models, adding new armor, new fire control system, a thermal sleeve and smoke discharges. The latest versions, the Megark 7, have been used by some IDF units. In the 1982 Lebanon War, M60 Pattons encountered Syrian T-54 55ths and T-72s as well as PLO T-34s. The Megark 6 proved successful against all types of Syrian armor. Some were destroyed by Syrian infantry hunter-killer teams with ATGMs and supplemented by RPG-7s. Several other M60s were damaged by Hawk missiles fired from Syrian Gazelle helicopters. One Megark 6 was destroyed by a T-72 and another was abandoned by its crew after taking damage. In July 2013, Israel began a program called TUSA for the purpose of turning some military bases into sales lots for obsolete IDF equipment. Older models that are not suited for Israel's forces will be sold off, or sold for scrap if there are no buyers. M60A1, A3 and Megark tanks are among those being offered. Main buyers are expected from Latin American, Asian, and African countries. With the disbanding of the last M60 equipped divisions in 2014, the tank is no longer in service with the Israel Defense Forces. Kuwait. The M60A1 rise passive of the U.S. Marines saw action during Operation Desert Storm in the 1991 Persian Gulf War, opposing Iraqi armor which included the T-54, T-55, T-62, Type 69, and T-72. The M60A1s were fitted with add-on explosive reactive armor packages and supported the drive into Kuwait City, where they were involved in a two-day tank battle at the Kuwait airport with 10 tanks lost. They saw service with the United States Marine Corps and the Saudi Arabian Army. Other uses extensive numbers of M60 tanks served within the Iranian military during the Iran-Iraq War, with varying combat success during the 8 years of attrition and campaigning. A small number of M60A1s were deployed by Italian Army to Somalia during Operation Restore Hope in early 1990s. On the 2nd of July 1993, some were involved in the clash against Somali militia around checkpoint Pasta, enabling disengagement of ambushed Italian troops. One tank reportedly took a direct RPG hit on Commander's cupola with no losses on board. This engagement led Italy to lend some USMC M60A3 TTS tanks with reactive armor plates until mission completion. The U.S. military continues to have significant stockpiles of M60s waiting to be scrapped, sold off, converted, or used as targets in weapons testing, or used for radar objects for jet attack planes. Some vehicles that use the chassis are still in use, however. Most of the M60s still used much upgraded models. Patterns formed the basis for many new tank designs, some using the chassis but with all new turrets, others using various upgrade packages. Jordan, for example, is modifying 2 battalions of M60A3 with the IFCS system. In 2005, M60 variants were in service with Bahrain, Bosnia, Brazil, Egypt, Greece, Israel, Jordan, Portugal, Spain, Tunisia, Turkey, Thailand, Iraq, Iran, and some other nations to varying degrees. Royal Thai Army M60A3s were engaged in combat to recapture border post 9631 from Myanmar Army forces in 2001, and reportedly exchanged fire with Type 69 tanks. Greece offered to donate 13 M60A3 tanks to Afghanistan in 2007. Variants: XM60, M60, bearing a strong familial resemblance to the M48. The M60 has a wedge-shaped hull, 3 return rollers, and aluminum road wheels, features not found on previous M48s. Featured a turret with 105mm M68 gun. Some early production units for this M48 version did not have the commander's cupola. M60A1, first variant to feature the distinctive needle-nose, long-nose turret, along with better armor protection and improved hydraulics. M60A1 AOS, add-on stabilization, introduced in 1972 for the M68 gun. M60A1 Rise, reliability improvements for selected equipment, featured improvements of almost all the basic systems, including an upgraded engine design that allowed easier access to components to allow removing the engine pack in less time, and a new track type, T142, that helped reduce wear and improve track life. M60A1 Rise Passive, Rise but with a smaller infrared, white light-capable searchlight and passive night vision equipment. USMC M60A1 Rise Passives were outfitted with explosive reactive armor in the late 1980s. M60A1E1 developmental test vehicles fitted with the 152mm M162 gun missile launch. M60A1E2, M60A2 turret design finalized, giving the distinctive Starship look. A variant was tested with a remote-controlled 20mm cannon as well. M60A1E3 prototype. M60A1E2 fitted with 105mm gun. M60A1E4 experimental type was remote control weapons. M60A3, M60A1 fitted with a laser rangefinder, M21 solid-state ballistic computer, and a crosswind sensor. Late production units omitted the commander's cupola. M60A3 TTS tank thermal sight. M60A3S fitted with the AN VSG2 thermal sight. M60A3 SLAP, more powerful engine, electric turret controls, 120mm gun, digital fire controls, side skirts, and slat armor. M60 Super Tax, up-armored versions with minor improvements. Main version also featured no optical rangefinder. M60-2120S M60 Abrams hybrid vehicle developed by General Dynamics Land Division, not adopted by the United States military. Specialized M60AVLB baseline M60-based chassis armored vehicle launched bridge with 60-foot scissors bridge. M60A1 upgraded version of the M60 AVLB based on the M60A1. M60 AVLM armored vehicle launched MICLIC modified AVLB with up to 2 MICLIC on M60 chassis. M60 Panther, M60 modified into a remotely controlled mine-clearing tank. M728 CEV, baseline M60-based combat engineer vehicle fitted with a folding A-frame crane and winch attached to the front of the turret, and an M135 165mm demolition gun. Commonly fitted with the D7 bulldozer blade, or a mine plow for the clearing of land mines. M728A1 upgraded version of the M728 CEV based on the M60A1. Additional equipment: M9 dual dozer and earth-moving equipment for the M60. International M60 Sabra, highly upgraded version of the M60A1, which is designed for the MBT modernization program of the Turkish Army. It features a new 120mm smoothbore gun, electric stabilization system, new fire control system, and new armor package. M60 is also known as Sabra Mk2 E608, basically unmodified M60A1 E60A dozer version with M9 bulldozer kit installed. E60B, basically unmodified M60A3. M60V LPD 26/70th. Spanish Army bridge layer based on the M60 with Leguan bridge system. 12 converted from M60A1. M60CZ-10/25th Alicron, Spanish Army combat engineer variant. 38 converted from M60A1. Israeli variants. Many of the Israeli M60s have been upgraded with additional reactive or passive armor, drastically improving their armor protection. These up-armored versions are called Magach 6, Magach 7, Para. A secret Israeli modification covertly used for the past 30 years installed a fake gun on the front of the turret, while the rear of the turret concealed a pop-up spike anti-tank guided missile launcher. M60 Phoenix, Jordanian upgrade, being carried out by the King Abdullah II Design and Development Bureau. Upgrade includes shoot-on-move capabilities, increased firepower and armor protection scheme upgrade. Samsam, Iranian upgraded version of M60A1 tank, fitted with reactive armor, EFCS-3 fire control system, laser warning system and IR jammers.